Action is happening. We are
In three, two,
two,
one.
one.
We are alive. Well, not really alive, but alive. You can see the difference. It's pretty big point. It's nice. But today, Prove with Joe, episode 1, the first real episode. Got my good buddy Nick down here. We're going to talk about a few really cool topics today. But before we get into that, I'd really like to start with a quote. One of my girlfriend's favorite movies. I think you all know it. Let's see if you can recognize it.
Shout out, Abby.
Yeah. Exercise gives you endorphins. Or endorphins make you happy. Happy people just don't shoot their husbands. They just don't. And that, well, I'll tell you who it is later, see if you can guess it. No, I'm kidding. It's Elle from Legally Blonde. Kind of a crazy movie to get really good fitness advice from, but that really is good fitness advice. Endorphins from exercise makes you happy. And that's one of the main topics today. We're going to talk about Spark.
Hey, what was her name?
Whose name?
The actress from Legally Blonde.
Elle. Pretty sure?
Elle Woods, right?
Elle Woods. It was Elle Woods.
Elle Woods.
Yeah.
She had no relation to any relation to Tiger Woods, right?
No relations, unless she was like a, one of those exes, or not exes, the mistresses that he had with. That he got
So
with.
she had relations with him like that.
Possibly.
Interesting.
Maybe in his fantasies.
How much of his money do you think that she could get? Because she's like a lawyer, right?
At least half with the prenup. But back to the topic.
She probably sabotaged that prenup, don't you think?
If she was actually a real.
See, this is what happens when he lets guests like me on the show. But
yeah.
anyways, back to endorphins.
Today we're talking about three main topics. The Spark, a book about how fitness and exercise can influence the neuroscience in your brain and the chemicals in your brain. Really cool book. Just mentioned it at the intro. We're going to go through chapters 1 and 2 today, kind of go over what we've been reading and just kind of what we think about it. Second topic is going to be about setting goals. So we're going to go through and kind of talk about our own goals and how we're doing and how we set them and how it kind of relates to us being friends and to our friends being involved in fitness and just getting everyone else involved. Because if you set goals and tell other people about it, tell people you like most of the times, they're going to help you out. People you don't like, maybe not so much. But yeah. And then third topic today, we're going to talk about something really cool, hoping to define a term and kind of start it and put it into the lexicon of the English dictionary and all dictionaries, I guess. But we'll get to that later. So yeah, I'm going to start with Spark, exercise and how neuroscience affects your brain. So yeah, Nick, you read it, right?
Yeah, so I actually read this book my junior year of college, and my professor gave us this book in class. And at the time, I had so many other things on my mind other than reading the actual book and giving a shit about my class. But after I realized this guy was serious about us having to read the book, which is also something we'll get into later about American education, but we won't go down that rabbit hole right now. Another podcast, another time. But anyways, he hands us the book. We quickly figure out this guy's serious about us reading it. So I start reading it, and as I'm reading it, I'm like, light bulb, boop. And I go, whoa.
Would you call that a spark? Or
cheers to that one, mate. That was a pun in itself right there.
Tropicali, by the way. Any other fans out there?
Hey, best beer ever, brewed in Athens, Georgia. Yeah.
Key, put some lime or lemon in it.
Put a lime in it today. It's pretty awesome. With or without the lime, it's still my favorite beer of all time. But shout out Creature Comfort. Yeah, so the spark happened to me. And so what's happening is we're going through this semester and I'm learning fairly quickly, almost as if I'm having a sort of epiphany, a new theory on human existence, really. I found out that exercise is the key to medicating your mind.
Agree 100%. It really is such a positive influence on the brain. It's been shown that in recent studies.
It's almost common sense to think that your physical health is directly related to your mental health.
Yep.
Right? And so if I push myself physically, my brain is a physical matter, but my thoughts are my mental health, and that comes from my physical brain that is affected from the rest of my body.
Yep.
It has chemical receptors that we'll go into later, but like dopamine, serotonin,
all
norepinephrine,
that.
cortisol.
Yep. But unless you've never had that experience, if you've never had that kind of drive or whether or not you've been forced or motivated, if you've never truly experienced that fitness exercise reaction that happens in your brain, those chemicals releasing those dopamine, the serotonin, all those neurotransmitters, if you've never felt that quote unquote runner's high, if you've never got that lifter's PR, that boost of sudden energy, the emotions are off the chart because it's a natural drug, and people day in and day out who are in the fitness industry will testify to that 100%. Yeah. So it's that kind of...
You can become addicted to exercising.
Absolutely. Everything in moderation, as my grandma says.
Right.
So
we've learned not per se, I've haven't done any studies myself. I know you haven't either, but as I was going through school and as an exercise science major, I had professors like the one who gave us this book. Shout out Mr. Hobbs.
Yeah, Mr. Hobbs.
Mr. Hobbs.
You're going to be a future guest. I'm telling you.
Oh, I will invite Mr. Hobbs on this show.
Absolutely.
He is...
Zoom call because of Corona.
Yes, but the information I will hit him up actually. The information he has is very important, and a lot of his ideas match up with the goal of this podcast. But
I actually want to, since you brought him up, but sorry, what point did you have?
Yeah, my point was being that when we can train our body to have more positive thinking just by something as simple as exercising every day, like
it's so much power.
It's empowering. It is. It's like a sense of, wow, like I can control how I'm feeling today if I choose to make the decision to go do something, right? Because you were made to move. And this
Absolutely.
Professor of mine, Mr. Hobbs, is the one who helped me come to this realization by teaching his class in a manner that was more about like understanding like who you were and like the study of what makes us happy and healthy, right? And so we've learned that I thought exercise science was the major you chose when you couldn't like get through pre-med or something, and you just like for me like I figured out college was about getting through it and then doing like the whole like right now what I do is a sales job. But in being the exercise science major, something I thought was just like a write-off, like an easy thing, easy A. No, it was not easy. It was very tough. I learned literally the science of exercise, and it helped me understand like the science of human beings, of life in general.
Yeah, I mean that's just one part of it, right? Which is insane. The fact that we don't know everything about it yet. Researchers are still trying to figure out exactly how synapses firing in a successive order, one after another, in a chain, hundreds of millions of interactions in a blink of an eye, how that constitutes memory. Just the other day, there's actually a story where they had a study on a quote-unquote K-hole. This might be interesting for some people that have never heard of it. K-hole is something involving a certain kind of drug. It's a very powerful pharmaceutical drug that's used in medical research and medical purposes for sedation and pain therapy. And as they've actually found, whether or not endorsed medically or recreationally, you can enter a quote-unquote K-hole, which literally turns off a vast majority of your neuron interaction, down to the point where imagine a giant tree, and if everything is firing when you're alive, when you're running, when you're active, only the tiniest little strand in the core was still firing during these quote-unquote K-holes. But that just brings a whole new meaning to what is life. What is your consciousness? Is it that tiny little part that absolutely has to exist, that little tiny bit, and then everything else is a reaction from it? But that might be a little bit off topic for today's podcast. But the fact is, and the point is, we know a lot, but the more that you know, the more that you know that you don't know. I think I said that right.
I think you did. We're just going to roll with that.
We're going to roll with it.
Yeah, but basically what Joe's saying is we only know the tip of the iceberg about all of this. We're just now coming to the realization that, holy crap, we can better ourselves both physically and mentally through exercise.
Through exercise, through simple research and learning, communication, and talking with other people.
Right.
For me, that's what started Improve with Joe, Improve with me, all of this improvement stuff.
Because we want other people to come to the realization that we have, that life is about you becoming the captain of your own ship, taking charge, and making the
Joe is
happiness
my
that you want.
Instagram channel name, Joe the Ship. I'm the
Captain of
my
the
ship.
ship.
Makes
And
sense now. Comes
yeah,
full circle.
the ship is sailing. So,
And by the way,
Spark,
Spark.
shall we dive?
Absolutely. Since I think we at one point brought up, I think we brought up the author. Yeah, the author. His main inspiration for this book, his main spark for this book, was learning about this school. So the whole book was just an inspiration from learning about these students, this education program, where basically they implemented fitness, running, exercise in the morning, getting a heart rate up above a certain level into that fat loss, into that cardio zone, activating the brain in those ways. And they've shown empirically with data, with this study, that the students' reading scores, math scores, science scores, all of their test taking, communication skills, all went up. Granted, maybe 15, 20%. But think about if everyone got 15 to 20% smarter. Oh my gosh. And even that, it's a successive thing. You apply it to, school first thing in the morning. People at work can do it before they go into an important meeting. What? The time we were at like 11 minutes.
No, what's the pin?
2184.
Okay. We'll just cut that out.
Yeah. But yeah, they've shown that they produce these results, and even the teachers, from the basic stories that they've told, they know just by those referential stories that it's making a difference. And so I just thought that was really, really cool. And what about you, Nick? I know I would have loved to grow up in a school that had I had PE growing up. We had some stuff. But to have that kind of relationship, and for that kind of relationship to be taught and to be learned, and for you to experience that and from such an early age. I'm 27 now, but I wish I had this kind of understanding and involvement with fitness and all that kind of stuff 10 years ago, 15 years ago. My life would be completely different. I don't regret that. I was a very much nerd through and through, and I enjoyed it to the core. But do I wish I would have kept more involved and been more involved? Absolutely. But, it's...
Well, I basically think that as a child, especially in like the era that we grew up in as well, being a child in the early 2000s and growing up and just learning about being active is healthy. That's all you're told, right? You're like, it's good for you. We don't know why. Obviously, we were a little young, but at the same time, we were never really taught principles that we could have understood at a younger age. And in my opinion, it's because we were thrown into a system during a time period where it was more beneficial for larger corporations if we had more of a focus on watching cartoons, on eating the cereal, on doing the things that necessarily weren't the best for you. Right, and at the time you can handle it because you're a kid and you eat it up and you love it, right? Your metabolism's solid.
Unless you get diagnosed with ADD and get prescribed different medications and all that kind of stuff that you don't need, just because you need to run and be active.
And that's a whole nother thing is like the prescribing amphetamines like to children and putting them on basically something that's like carbon away from meth. Carbon away from methamphetamine, which they're in the same class of drugs. They're both amphetamines. Yeah. In second grade, my teacher brought up that I might need ADHD medication because I definitely have it, and I definitely have, but I've never been medicated.
Thank you, parents, for not medicating.
Right, same to me. And I just participated in sports, and and that's why today I go on that run all the time, almost every day now, because it's like exercise is self-medicating. It will help you focus. It'll help relieve stress. Absolutely. It does everything that you're trying to achieve out of pills that you're given by the doctor.
Yeah, refer to my the video I had where I was boxing. I relieved more stress, more tension, more just that day from hitting that heavy bag hard or from playing sports than physical therapy. Therapy, communicating with people, talking to someone who knows what they're talking about. That's good. You should do that sometimes. Yeah. But oh my gosh, the effect that you can have from just running until you can't run anymore and just laying on the floor, being dead tired and knowing you put in work and your body is going to thank you for it. It's going to pay dividends way down the line.
And Joe, another thing, and I think you would agree with me on this thing, is the fact that I believe that the powers that be do not want us to realize the benefits of exercise over medication because companies, organizations like Big Pharma
Yeah,
are
yeah.
lobbying for their
I mean,
pills to be
more than just
sold.
big pharma, big tobacco, big pharma,
Right.
big
Even the big,
granola,
what
big
about like Chick-fil-A, the
cereal.
big fast food companies?
Yeah, I mean
They
that's
don't
a
want you to they
huge,
want you to love
huge.
their food and not yeah, to not eat
Yep.
healthier.
Yep. And it's up to us to say to those producers, to those companies, to those individual corporations, hey, we're done with this. We've had enough. We're on the healthy kick now. Like,
But they have a whole marketing scheme for people to think
but
that stuff is like okay for them to consume.
of course, but with optimism in the future, we'll be able to work our way from the inside, push outward, and become more of a voice in the world. Pro fitness, pro health, pro, lack of pharmaceuticals pumped into children. All the stuff that we're talking about, and we'll talk about.
And pro
Like,
understanding yourself and your role in a society. Like I think
yeah, absolutely. And how that could potentially change. Oh my gosh, that's absolutely going to be a topic in the future, because something that people are not talking about now is what robotics are going to do to our society, and how every single person from, I mean, obviously truck driver, fast food,
relates to what's going on now is if we can figure out a way for everybody to live at home and
Yeah.
operate a society with
Yeah.
robots, we'll have achieved what this coronavirus is showing us.
It could definitely
Live, especially with Amazon growing.
Yeah, I mean, I can tell you, I don't want to live inside my entire life. Whether or not I can work from home and do everything from home, even when there's the, like, what is the book? The VR world, Ready Player One. Even when there's that, I'll still want to go outside, get that good old vitamin D. Absolutely,
You really think
it's absolutely going to happen in the future. I would guess by
like a VR PvP
2040. I mean, it's 2020.
VR PvP.
Yeah, the player versus player is PvP. The VR is virtual reality. So it'll be like a virtual reality on an omnidirectional treadmill with haptic neuron sensors. Because basically you have to have the virtual reality goggles. You have to have the Dolby Atmos sound. Absolutely, you can relate it to exercise. You could do anything. And there's a movie, Ender's Game, where they're literally flying around in this giant floatless bubble, just kind of having a dodgeball game, but in 3D. Think about the complexity of every sport being added into a third dimension. Football, but with a third dimension. Rugby, basketball. What if there's 4 baskets or 8 baskets in basketball? Like, I mean, who knows what's going to happen? And that's part of our future. We are going to have floating space station, just like we have the International Space Station now. Granted, it took 20 years to build, and the video on how that was made, oh my gosh, that blew my mind. I watched that the other day. Insane, yeah, of how they started one capsule at a time, proved it over time, connected it. It was a joint mission between Russia and the United States. It was amazing to watch. Absolutely, I'm gonna have to find that and link that.
I can't believe you actually successfully worked with another nation.
It's amazing, especially Russia, which brings into a whole other topic of how Russia's been so demonized. Right. And we're getting into so much stuff. We're gonna have to jot all this down because these are all topics that are gonna come up later, guys. Like, but yeah, I mean, Russia played a huge part in World War II. They had 17 million deaths compared to our 500,000. Like, it's insane. We had a meaningless Cold War because of a president that got caught up in other stuff that he shouldn't got caught
And we are going to go back to the book Spark.
Highly recommend Oliver Stone, Untold History of the United States. If you have not seen it, I will gladly.
Actually is very good. I have seen it as well.
Prepare to take it slow. Take it 10 minutes at a time. Think about it. Come back to it. It's an intense show. It'll really challenge your beliefs if you really listen to it. And believe it. Everything's taken with a grain of salt. You can always look up resources later. But either way, we're getting distracted. Back to the original point about how great the brain is and how exercise and being fit will literally, they've shown the activity of running or weightlifting or playing a sport literally turns on the neurons in your brain in certain areas, whether or not it be the frontal lobe, the hippocampus, the parietal lobe, the occipital lobe, because all the seeing, the smelling, the feeling, everything going on, your brain making calculations, decisions, figuring out what to do. That activates all those neurons and makes them fire, and they're just going. And so when you're done, they're still warmed up, pretty much. So think about having a warmed up brain before you go into a meeting, before you go into work, before you have to go to school and take that big
The
important
most
test.
natural way, no side effects other than good way. Because if you think about it, we as human beings were searching and scavenging all day for food. We didn't have a refrigerator to put it in. The only place we could store it was inside of us. And so we went all day searching for the thing that was good for us to eat.
Yep.
And so if you can honestly tell me that sitting inside, being sedentary most of your day in the past, I want to say 200 years, like that's started and become a thing.
Yeah.
Like that gives you no time for your body to evolve to that. Right, and they were all obese.
They were quote unquote gods.
They
And they were gods.
and it used to be nice to look obese in people's eyes. They were like, that's a sign of wealth.
It is all the way back through all of our history. I mean, when you think about it, humans like patterns, and when something is outside of that pattern, we seek for an explanation of that. Whether or not that's a shooting star in the sky that lasts for 30 days, or why the sun or why the moon turns red sometimes or appears bigger, or why certain stars are grouped together, or why one person is bigger than the other, and then there's all these other characteristics that stand out, biologically speaking, that sometimes we can't perceive, we don't understand, but we're naturally drawn to. Whether or not they're good looking, or whether or not they're charismatic, or whether or not they have a shrewd mind and they can make certain decisions the right way, like they stick out. And sometimes they mean more, sometimes they mean less. And that whole decision of what means more, what means less, it's kind of off topic, but something I've definitely thought about before. But with that,
and basically, over time, humans went from living in these civilizations where they were hunter-gatherers, right? And this is in the past 500 years.
Yeah.
500 to 1,000, somewhere in that time range. Even could be shorter than that.
I think it's farthest back for when we started the agricultural settlements is like 6,000 BC, or maybe 6,000 years ago, I believe.
But like we were hunter-gatherers.
Still very hunter-gatherer, but we started to grow crops, started to build huts,
and we didn't even have refrigerators until like the past 150 years.
We had salt. We could preserve stuff in basic ways like that, burying it underground, a few other methods, but pretty much no.
So what most human beings need to understand is the fact that our bodies have not come close to being able to adapt and evolve to this very new lifestyle of having things in a fridge, having things processed, driving and getting fast food, having access to the fucking, excuse my language, I guess we can cuss on this thing, right?
Yeah. We'll see. We'll limit it to one F-bomb per shot.
Well, I kind of used mine. Dang it.
Damn.
I almost said not dang it. Anyways, we have like Wendy's, McDonald's, Arby's, yada, yada, yada. I can go wherever, however. I can go to the vending machine downstairs, and then we can sit all day and work. I know you can. I know I can. I'm not required to move ever.
Nope.
And so you have to,
delivery service now.
In today's society, you have to take it upon yourself to get up and move. It's not a necessity.
Delivery services will literally bring it inside of your home or residence.
We literally are on our way to the movie WALL-E, with Amazon and Jeff Bezos being the head and figure of that big corporation, right?
Yep.
Amazon is going to be
They're going to merge at some point, and it's going to be Amazon Google Book.
Done.
Amazon Google Book.
Is Apple just going to fade somehow?
They're going to be acquired by Amazon. They start with the same letter.
Ah.
Consolidation, man. You got to think of the simplest thing.
It's like the claw. Anyways, I think we should talk about Spark, though. All that stuff is what we will be talking about in way more depth once we've done a little more research into exactly how we can make a positive light and avoid all of that bad thing from happening, which is what we want people to realize. The path we're on is not necessarily, as a whole, the path we're on is not good. And we want to shift that direction and have more people come to an understanding where if we take the right steps and think with a different mindset about everything, we can turn this all around.
And approach it in that way, communicate it to others in a way that's not like all doom and gloom and negativity and
Right.
nonsense because there's so much of that
And
already.
the media wants you to think that it's doomsday every day you wake up. They
Yep.
want you to think. You ever seen the movie
Yep.
Independence Day with Will Smith?
Oh, there's so many movies around
Okay,
that
like
topic. Yeah.
I mean,
But yeah,
it's
Independence Day.
any doomsday movie. There's thousands of them out there.
I'm a very big favorite of doomsday movies. My most recent one is the Chinese one where they literally have to move the Earth. I don't remember the title for it, but they make space engines and or Earth engines rather, and move the Earth out of the solar system because the sun is about to blow up. It's amazing. But sorry.
Yeah, no, you're fine. The media, big media in today's world is literally a doomsday movie every freaking day.
Yeah.
And it's like at this point,
It's because it's
they've literally exhausted like the human especially Americans. They've like exhausted us to the point where we're like,
yep.
it's like the boy who cried wolf. You're sitting here like,
Yep.
how much more can I take? Like, I don't even
And
believe
then something
you.
else comes up.
And then the
something
whole
else
news
comes up,
thing
which
with Bubba Wallace comes out, and we're like, oh my god, like that is like so
Bubba
bad.
Wallace?
The NASCAR driver when
Oh yeah.
the news thing came out, and the media made us think that this was a hate crime, and lo and behold, it was just an accident.
Yeah, I mean, there's a lot of hate crimes that are still happening now. I mean,
Don't
still
get us wrong.
investigation,
Obviously, tons
I
of
mean,
hate
there's,
crimes
and there's so
happening.
many things that really, truly like outrage you and should outrage you.
But this is something that
It's just-
I think
but
my
the
point I was
media
trying to make
is-
is it's not as simple as white and black, and the media wants it to be that way.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely.
That's it. Yeah.
And the media is controlled by who? Lots of rich people who have their own agenda, who may not fit into the country that you live in.
They don't live a type of life that we ever live.
It's a
They
different
don't live,
echelon of existence.
they have
when
a-
you really think about it,
Yeah.
it's not. They
And-
don't deal with the same problems. They don't understand
Well, you have to
the
think
world.
the amount of power they have, dude.
Absolutely.
So if you have
Think
that
about
much
a
power,
billionaire.
think about what that does to your brain and what you think of everything. If you have so much influence on everything,
yeah,
right?
it's just gonna
You think about
separate
people
you,
as
divide
ants.
you.
Wouldn't you think about people as ants if you were like
There are
Julius,
some exceptions, of course, but yeah.
Julius Caesar, right?
Yeah.
Emperor of
Oh my
Rome.
God. Well, that's a whole.
How
nother,
do I
that's a
think
whole
about
nother,
people?
Like,
I'm gonna think of them as like ants in a system, right? I'm not gonna think of.
well,
I'm
yeah,
gonna think
because
of them
back
beneath
then,
me.
I mean, it was a whole different world, and it was like the conqueror mentality. That's all there was. But now we've progressed beyond that. We're not in Roman civilization anymore, where there has to be the one conqueror.
But human nature
it doesn't
never
have to
changes.
just be one.
But human nature itself is never gonna change, in my opinion.
I don't think so. I think
At the
in
root of
in
it
the-
all is power, right? I'm looking for power, money, and then pleasure.
those are base human desires, yes. But I don't think base human desires constitute what we all want and what our future and what our essence is. Like those are things that can influence you and be a part of who you are and be a part of how you grow up and what you do. But root human essence, I don't think is stagnant. We can always change, just like we're always evolving. And especially now that we're like manipulating our evolution in some ways, and like, I mean, literally designer babies, we're changing. I mean, technology is affecting us in so many ways. We're definitely going to be changing over the future. It's just how we're going to be changing. It's are we going to continue the exploration and domination and conquest through the whole of the world until one dominates everything? If not, I mean, if we don't get to that point, we're just going to nuke each other and die. That's non-positive sense. But the positive view is that we all do work together and get beyond that individualistic nation state power struggle. But that's the optimist view, because I do think may take some third party alien attack or climate. I mean, heck, maybe the climate. Oh, wouldn't that be a great third party actor to make the big villain for the entire world? Yeah, let's fight the sun.
Do you think aliens benefit from exercise?
I'm sure they do, except it's a different kind of exercise. It's
I
a
don't know.
mental exercise.
See, I'm one of those
4D
people that
space.
believe that there's like tons of Earths out there, and there's other humans, and they're like the same thing as us.
Like the parallel dimension, multi.
I wouldn't say
multiverse,
parallel.
multiverse.
I would not say parallel. Like I said, there
Multiverse.
might be slight difference. No, it's
What
like
do you think in our universe?
in our universe, since it's so vast, so big, there's other planets with life on it, and
That
they
have
look
developed in
similar
that
to.
way.
They look very similar to Earth. They have plants, they have trees, they have water, but it's not the
can see
same
that.
exact
I
thing.
mean, if they're the Greys, I think if they've charted it and added up over
Like,
the years, there's 13
they
distinct.
could make a movie
like,
out of
12
this
or
shit.
13.
You go to the planet and it's got everything the same except things are slightly different. Like, so you go there and like you show up to it's supposed to be McDonald's, but it's
I would
some.
bet you $100 there is the old school black and white Black Mirror.
Twilight.
Twilight. I bet
Twilight
there's
Zone.
a Twilight Zone.
If you haven't seen
episode
Twilight
about
Zone,
that.
watch
Yeah,
that
that
stuff.
would be a cool retro series to kind of go through Twilight Zone and be like, oh, how does this apply to today?
Yeah.
Kind of cool.
Yeah. Honestly, the episode that I remember the most, they showed me to it in grade school when I was younger. When I first found out what Twilight Zone was, it was an episode where aliens came down and lived amongst the humans and caused them.
Aliens? It's not Invasion of the Body Snatchers. Might be.
Anyways, it was this small small American society, not civilization, but just like neighborhood, regular American life, middle class. And they come into this town and everybody's thinking everybody else is the alien and they're causing divide amongst the people. So that episode does relate a lot to the divide that we're talking about in the society today. All that being said, we came here to talk about Spark. Let's talk about Spark.
Okay.
Chapter 1, there's important stuff to life in Chapter 1, and it all touches on these broad topics we were talking about just now.
Absolutely.
It's a case study from Naperville Central High School where they did this hour-long PE class experiment, and the kids were working out by running before school every morning. So, Spark, great book, obviously touches on a lot of the topics that Improve With Me wants to talk about. So, Joe, why don't you take it away and explain kind of what the book's about?
Going to start off first with a quote. It starts off the book, and I think it's really, really nice. We'll just go ahead and read the quote. In order for the self to succeed in life, two means of improvement were developed: education and physical activity, not separately, one for the soul and the other for the body, but for the two together. With these two means, the self can pursue perfection and attain self-actualization. I kind of modified this a little bit. I'll put it in the description, and I'll put it up here, possibly. But yeah, I think it was a really good quote to begin the book. Really got you thinking about what it is. It's two parts of the body. It's the mind and it's the body. And the two work together. They're not separate things. And so with that, start the discussion about this Naperville High School. Nick, why don't you tell me about the high school, what they did?
Yeah, so at Naperville, there was this PE teacher that decided to take his class, do about an hour of running before school every morning. And they were just going to see, all right, what are going to be the effects of us doing this with our control group that doesn't do this, and then our experiment group that will do the exercise before school.
Good scientific experiment.
Right. And so not only did they see improvements over time from the students' test scores before and after running, right? They saw a way bigger difference in the test scores of the students that were taking the same test, the students who weren't running that were running, right?
Okay.
And so it just went to show that their brain power early in the morning taking an exam was more awoken and ready to take the exam and clear-minded. And not only that, I'm fairly certain there's a statistic in the book that said that these students were also finishing the test quicker.
Yeah, I think I can't remember exactly. We'll look that up.
Don't quote me on it. Don't arrest me. But besides that, Spark is a very influential book in this thinking and talks about multiple different scientific references from multiple different peer-reviewed journals, and it is very, very, very factual shit. And you
we'll just go
should
through,
read it if you have an interest.
Some of the notes that we took.
Yeah, and some of this stuff that we're talking about. So
just to start with, first thing I wrote down, exercise. Build and condition the brain. Building muscles and conditioning the heart and lungs are just good side effects. Excuse me, let me say that again. Exercise, build and condition the brain. Yeah, okay, so start off with first thing I wrote, exercise. Building and conditioning the brain is the first priority. Building muscles and conditioning the heart and lungs are just good side effects. So it really is that you're establishing that connection between the brain and the body. That's what working out, being fit, moving your body, establishing that sixth sense or the sixth sense. Yeah, and another great quote. There's still so much we don't understand about what happens in the microenvironment of the brain, but I think what we do know can change people's lives. and maybe society itself. And that really is a truly powerful thing, because the more that you understand about yourself, the more your neighbor can potentially understand about themselves. Because if you have a communication, you have a dialogue between person to person, between group to group, community to community, state to state, country to country, that's the ultimate. And then worldly with aliens, you know, those extraterrestrial ET dudes. The government just released the footage literally a couple days ago, clarifying that the UFO footage that they released by the UFO pilots was not doctored. They released it, and that it was not doctored. They're slowly giving you crumbles, bread crumbles. Yeah, bread crumbles. Let's see what else.
I thought something interesting was that you're regulating your signals of serotonin, which help keep your brain under control, calm, cool, and collected, right?
Mhm.
So that serotonin is that relaxing feeling. It helps regulate your norepinephrine, which amplifies signals that influence attention, perception, motivation, and arousal.
Good things.
Right, so we see an increase in people's libido when they exercise as well, right?
Yep.
Okay,
As long as it's not leg day.
And
Then
so
you have no power.
we don't have to worry about taking the blue pill, basically, is
no.
what happens. So dopamine, okay, I think people have heard, if you've heard one of these neurotransmitters before, you heard of dopamine. You heard of dopamine if you heard of a neurotransmitter.
Yeah.
Dopamine's your happiness emoji, right? It's like the thing that makes you smile. And so that is something that is triggered when we take, for example, like an Adderall or Vyvanse, an ADHD medication. You're just like squeezing the dopamine out of your brain like a lemon, and it helps amplify your ability to learn, have attention, to comprehend, and like actually ingest like knowledge and spit it back out.
Crazy.
It's crazy, like what your mind's capable of
Drugs
when
are
you
insane.
right, like when you change like the chemical framework of how your brain is like perceiving and like having these chemical receptors uptake all of this. It's crazy to think like we're just touching the tip of the iceberg with what our brain's capable of, right?
It really is.
And so it's also messed up though that we're experimenting technically with human brains by not examining what their brain is doing before we prescribe these medications. It's the only organ of the body
It's very true.
that we don't like take a scan of or figure out what's actually going on with it. We medicate and then we see.
Sure, for some things, but a lot of like
we
psychiatric.
medicate and
all
then
that,
see how are you doing after that, and then we might
It
change
really
up
is.
something, and then we're
It
giving
really
a
is.
cocktail where we're mixing, and then it's
My cousin has a cocktail going. It's not working for him, and it's just like, when will it end? And it
and it
won't,
just leads to more
unfortunately,
problems.
unless- it
And who
absolutely
benefits
does.
from that in the end is big pharmaceuticals.
Big pharma and all that. Yeah. But at the end of the day, things are improving. Drug prices and hospital fees actually just got law passed where they can no longer not establish and show privately their prices. They have to show them publicly, which is a great step. And Medicare for all, healthcare for all, whatever you want to call it. Eventually, we will move to that system. My opinion, I think we'll move to that system. I think we should. It should be an established safety net. The country should be able to take after its citizens in that way. My liberal agenda for now.
But pretty much like this book, and I would recommend anybody to read it. This book will give you insight with actual scientifical, if that's even a word.
Not a word.
I'm not even using real words. Actual scientific, factual information that will help you gain a better perspective on you, yourself, us as a society, and how we operate on a cellular level.
Absolutely.
And you'll understand your makeup and how to better that every day. Improve with me. That's what this book is about. And we're no scientists, right? Obviously, you're going to see, we're going to talk about things. We're going to have, me and him have some different opinions on things, just as you guys might have different opinions than us on some things.
Absolutely.
But the whole point of this is we're going to share our opinion based on the information that we've gathered. And things we say may not always be absolutely scientifically correct. But the stuff in this book is.
Very true.
The stuff in this book is.
Absolutely.
And we're talking about that. So, bottom line, Get out and move. You were made to move.
Yeah, I definitely think that's a good summary of chapter 1 and 2.
Yeah.
Yeah. So yeah, definitely we'll come back to that next time. Continue on the Spark book, and continue on with the fitness journey. For now, we're going to talk about a little bit of our goals and goal setting, and
Yes.
a couple of the top ones that are on my mind for setting goals. Do we want to go to the whiteboard? We're going to go to the whiteboard. All right, so we're going to talk about some of our goals. Hopefully, you can see, right?
You got dreams, kid?
Good. Got dreams, all the dreams. So, goals. For me, one of my biggest fitness goal, and this is the part where it kind of is subjective because it depends on how you make your goals. What do you perceive as a reward? Is it just purely losing weight? Is it gaining more muscle? Is it being able to just get around on your daily life in a better way and feel better and do all that kind of stuff? Really, it's totally up to you. That's the whole point. Some of the times it's an individual journey, some of the times it's a group journey. But, so for this, just establishing goals. So for me, mine is very much so based around numbers. I'm a big numbers person. So for me, I want to get that 20-minute 5K. Blooper. And we're going to just get right into it. So for me, my goals are really based around numbers. So for me, it's kind of a pride thing, and that's okay. Sometimes pride, sometimes ego is a big motivator. And for a lot of people, in terms of how they push themselves, you need that. You need to be able to tell yourself, I can do this. I will do this. It's going to happen. However you want to convince yourself. There's a variety of ways. We'll get into all that later. But for me, number one, 5K time, 20 minutes. So,
How many miles is a 5K?
3.1. So, to kind of go with that, I want to get my 1 mile time at 6 minutes. And then to go back to fitness, or go back to lifting and sports, and just to go back to lifting, I want to get a bench press of 315. I want to do a deadlift of 500. And I want to do a squat of 315 because my squat is much worse than my deadlift, but I'm working on it.
And do you know what you're currently at for some of these?
Yeah, my current right now for squat, for squat, I'm at 395. We'll go with that. Squat right now is 315. Deadlift is 415, and bench is 275. So right now I'm at like 1,010 pounds total. I think it's 1,005, 1,015, one of those. So definitely make a lot of improvement that way. And then last is a challenge that I was starting to do for 30 days in a row. Didn't continue it. That's okay. A Murph time of 40 minutes or under with the vest.
And you want to achieve all of this at the same point in time. Be able to do all of this.
And I want to be able to do this at the same point in time. Not the same day, not the same
right,
week,
but
not the same
period
month,
of time, yeah.
But in the same fitness realm, yes.
Right,
be able to do all these, which is a hard thing. That's something I'm definitely have to learn a lot more about because deadlifting 500 does not help you run a 6-minute mile. So, yeah, I'm going to have to figure that out. So, Nick, what are your goals?
Yeah, I think I'll just write up next to you. Is there another color I can use? My goals right now, just last week, a week and a day ago, I was able to run 13 miles in 2 hours and 17 minutes. So right now I'm at 13 miles.
Cheers, boss! Woo! It is pretty damn impressive.
I'm at 13 miles, so half marathon, finally freaking got there. And I will say, running at first was running 1 to 2 miles was a struggle. So.
Just remember, never mind. Ooh, double lines.
So that's what I'm at right now. And that's an okay time for a half marathon, in my opinion. But I want to get, my goal is to get to, how far is marathon? 26 and how far?
26.2.
26.2. This is my goal. And I want to get it within this marker. I want to get 26.2 miles with under 4 hours. I want to be able to run a marathon. And so the marathon is my goal. Okay, so, and this for me is a cardio goal. As far as my resistance training and my physical fitness outside of anything cardio or respiratory related, I would say bench wise, I currently weigh about 170 pounds. I was 171 on the scale today. I want to be able to bench that weight 10 times, which I've never been able to do. So bench your body weight 10 times. So I'm just going to do body weight 10 times. For squat, I want to be able to hit 300. I've never been able to do that. And then outside of those two categories, I really want my pull-up game to be better. So pull-ups, I really want, and I've never been able to do this, I want to be able to do 30 pull-ups in a row. And these are goals of mine. So 30 pull-ups in a row, squat 300 pounds, bench my body weight 10 times, and my body weight is equal to about 171 pounds. And so those, my friend, are my goals. And I don't see why either of us could not achieve these goals. I think they're very reasonable. My goal for the marathon is in November. Joe, when are your goals set to be due by? Is that kind of just up in the air?
No, these are, for me, these are definitely more long-term goals that don't necessarily have a set date for them. I'm going to go further, another video, podcast about more specifics about goal setting and what's a reasonable goal and what's based on a cardio or a weight class or personal or relationship. Different goals to break them up into and different settings for that and different feelings regarding that. So for me, they're different. For my 5K, that's a year, 2 years? I don't know. I mean, right now, I can run a 5K in 30 minutes. I can do that confidently. But that's 10 minutes. To take a third of the time off, that's I granted, but when I was in high school, I did it one time. It was 1957. I won my man card that day. I beat every cross-country girl.
You were in high school in 1957?
Yeah, I know, right?
Wow.
It's a long time ago.
Yeah.
Oh, good. 1 mile time. I have beaten that before. I had a 5:27 long time ago. It was a downhill course on the first mile of the 5K track. But I got a 5:27. That was pretty good.
Yeah.
That
was your F-bomb for the show. That was his F-bomb for the show.
The second mile was like 11 minutes, so I kind of died, but bench 275 right now. I got one tiny little pause. I'm doing an upcoming three total video. I'll put that in there. Deadlift right now, that's 415, so that's 85 pounds. Solid jump in, I'm saying a year probably for solid jump on that, a year. Probably benched a year to do 315 comfortably. Squat 395, that'll probably take solid year. My squat's not very good. I tried to do it today and it was not very good. So working on that. And then the Murph, I did one, my fastest time was 51 minutes, but that was without a vest.
And you were probably huffing for air.
Oh yeah. So, and I want to do that not comfortably. There's people with no comfortable.
But you want to shred it.
I want to shred it. Yeah. So, in terms of, if I had to pull-ups, I could do that. I'll do that one too. And I like the bodyweight bench. Bodyweight bench 10 times is really cool. And bodyweight.
I bet you could.
I don't know. That's 205 for 10 times.
It's a lot.
I don't think I could. We can try it. We'll try it in a video. Maybe we'll try it tomorrow. No, we're not. We're doing pull tomorrow.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. So yeah, that's a.
Get him a nice shot of.
No, it's barely in there.
Oh, okay. These are our goals.
It's not too bad. Not too bad. So yeah, I think we can finish it off with the future definition that we're trying to start, the new hashtag. We're going to try to have one hashtag each one, see if anything sticks. But for this one, going to stick with it for a long time. Found this, the guy who initially started it is the creator of Smart Every Day. His name is, where can I find it? Okay. I'll link the channel, I'll put the thing, all that stuff. But either way, he was talking about basically how the world is changing, about especially at a time like this, like we talked about before. The world is divisive. It's trying to make a left and a right. It's trying to make a top and a down. It's trying to make a good and a bad. That's happened throughout a lot of history, but today even more so, whether or not it's online, in person, politics.
If you haven't, go look at a piece of history. You'll learn that history repeats itself. We're literally doing the same thing that humans have been doing as long as politics existed.
Just
you go study the Roman politics. Politicians will be politicians, and people will still be in the blind as long as we let the powers that be keep us in the blind.
Yep.
Yeah.
Pretty much.
So
Yeah, the term that we want to coin, that he coined actually, that we want to popularize and start a hashtag for and want you to help popularize. Going to do it on the Twitter, the Facebooks, all the different social media channels, of course. You know, you got to be hip with the youngsters and the oldsters. It's the Facebook, it's the Instagram. Yeah, it is proactive, intentional, unity. Say it with me.
proactive, intentional, unity.
Start off proactive. What is the definition of proactive? It is creating or controlling a situation by causing something to happen rather than responding to it after it has happened. I think proactive is a pretty awesome word. That's taking control. That's understanding that you're capable of the action. You're
like, think about if we were preaching unity amongst citizens before all of this happened, like before we needed a wake-up call, right?
Really? What the world would be like now if 1950.
If we had thought, oh, maybe sometimes the way police handle situations, not necessarily the best.
And unfortunately we did, but there's sometimes those voices are squashed, which happens over time.
Which does happen.
But power to the people, the more people are talking about it, the voices can't be squashed. So, proactive, intentional, done on purpose, deliberate. That's powerful too. You know what you're doing. It's as the word says, intentional. It's you've thought about the cause and effect relationship, and if you're great, you add more extra gumption to it, but empathetic and empathy in there.
I like that word.
Gumption?
Yeah.
Nice,
yeah.
I got gumption. Yeah, and then unity. Should be straightforward, but it's this state of being united or joined as a whole. I think that's pretty cool. I think we need to do that.
I think we need to be a United States of America.
Yeah, United States of America, United Countries of the Earth. What about that? Let's start that as the next potential hashtag, United States of the Earth. But you put those three things together, and I think a okay definition, dictionary.com, I'm coming for you. I think we'll have a new dictionary definition soon. Proactive, intentional unity. Creating and controlling a situation by causing something on purpose to produce a state of unity. You're doing something on purpose.
We can break that down to a lot of people, or we can break that down to unity within yourself by making the choice to go out and exercise.
And do yoga. Yoga's fun too.
Finding unity within is something that we could go on for a long time about as well.
And we'll bring it back up. We'll talk about it again. I really want to push forward this proactive, intentional unity. I think in terms of what's going on now, in terms of what's been going on, in terms of what will go on in the future. If we do this, PIU, is an acronym okay? If we pew, if we pew. No, I'm kidding. If we have proactive, intentional unity. Those are good. If you know your guns, it's guns. No.
Oh God, let's not get into guns.
Another podcast, another time. But yeah, so that's, I think, we talked about Spark, we talked about our goals, we talked about proactive, intentional unity. And to be honest, I think they all connect, especially a lot of the ramblings that we had.
We naturally have a lot of ramblings, but that's part of the fun. Is we're just speaking and letting it flow.
That brought to you by Creature Comfort.
Brought to you by, yes, actually, indeed, sir. We are brought to you by Creature Comfort, Nectar of the Gods. Drink that baby up. And hey, that's the podcast. Hope you enjoyed.
That is the podcast
Improve
with Joe and Nick. Thank you for joining. Okay, an hour. That's okay.
But we have lots to cut through.
Let's put it all up.